In late April 2026, the United Arab Emirates released a statement that dismantled a nearly 60-year alliance. Effective May 1st, they officially withdrew from OPEC and the broader OPEC Plus coalition. For decades, this organization has operated as the central bank of global oil. Led primarily by Saudi Arabia, the cartel's explicit purpose is to control global supply and dictate market prices by enforcing strict production limits on its members. Leaving the cartel is a massive risk under normal conditions, but doing so right now seems almost contradictory. The Middle East is currently locked in an active war with Iran, making the energy market as volatile as it has been in decades. This map shows the Strait of Hormuz choke point, which is currently blockaded. Because of this disruption, roughly 9.1 million barrels of daily Gulf production are trapped. The UAE's own output has plunged from 3.4 million barrels a day down to just 1.9 million. Walking away from historical allies in the middle of a regional conflict looks erratic on the surface, but Abu Dhabi's departure is a highly calculated move, forced by three colliding strategic pressures. Over the last few years, the UAE has poured over $150 billion into expanding its domestic oil infrastructure through its state energy company, ADNOC. Their goal is to pump and sell as much oil as possible before global demand peaks and fossil fuels lose their value. The friction is clear. The UAE has the capacity to produce 4.85 million barrels a day, targeting 5 million by 2027, but their OPEC quota restricts them to 3 million. This discipline leaves millions of barrels stranded, starving their post-oil economic transition of critical funding. Complying with OPEC constraints meant stranding their most valuable physical assets, while the global clock on fossil fuels rapidly runs out. That economic friction fed directly into a second pressure, the deeply fractured bilateral alliance between Abu Dhabi and Riyadh. While the two nations historically cooperated, their regional interests have severely diverged. This dissolved into open proxy battles late last year, culminating in Saudi Arabian airstrikes targeting UAE-backed forces in Yemen. Outside the military theater, the two states are locked in a fierce economic competition. They are directly fighting to secure foreign investment, attract corporate headquarters, and establish total economic primacy in the Red Sea and the Gulf. By exiting OPEC, the UAE is formally refusing to allow Saudi Arabia to dictate its economic ceiling. It is a deliberate step to permanently remove itself from Riyadh's institutional control. The final pressure that accelerated this exit was the active war with Iran. The conflict brought direct, kinetic attacks onto UAE soil and severely disrupted their critical maritime export routes. In response to these attacks, the Gulf Cooperation Council and the Arab League offered almost no tangible defense. Emirati leadership publicly labeled the multilateral response as miserably weak. This created a geopolitical absurdity. The UAE was sitting at the same OPEC table, adhering to collective quotas, alongside the exact same nation that was actively blockading its exports and attacking its territory. Abu Dhabi immediately pivoted its security posture. They abandoned multilateral Gulf alliances and moved to secure strict bilateral protection, bringing in Israeli missile defense systems and coordinating directly with the United States. The war proved to the UAE that multilateral Gulf solidarity was a myth. To ensure its own survival, it had to weaponize its energy policy unilaterally. Right now, global spot prices for crude oil remain exceptionally high. But that price strength is almost entirely artificial, driven by the ongoing blockade at the Strait of Hormuz rather than cartel discipline. While spot prices are elevated today, the forward curve stretches downward into 2027. Traders anticipate unconstrained UAE oil flooding the supply chain. This creates immediate corporate winners. As OPEC's grip loosens, U.S. producers like Exxon and Chevron capture market share. There are also sovereign winners. Major oil importing nations, particularly India, stand to gain critical relief from high inflation and current account deficits, as increased supply eventually pushes long-term costs down. The primary loser in this equation is Saudi Arabia. Without the UAE sharing the load of production cuts, Riyadh must bear a vastly heavier, costlier burden to single-handedly stabilize global oil prices. Abu Dhabi's exit sets a highly destructive precedent for OPEC. If the third largest producer in the cartel can walk away and immediately prosper, The fundamental threat of collective discipline is fatally compromised. This completely dismantles the unified Arab energy bloc that has successfully dictated terms to Western consumers for decades. As global energy markets move closer to peak demand, the era of cartel cooperation is effectively dead. In its place is a ruthless, every state-for-itself race to monetize the last valuable barrels of oil.